Climate change. It's real, it's ongoing, and it's destructive. Signed the Trump administration. But will the definitive Black Friday admission alter the president's promotion of coal and deregulation of the oil patch? On the border, desperate migrants cluster across the Rio Grande as Donald Trump threatens a total shutdown. Will the crisis get worse before it gets better? On Capitol Hill, Pelosi's push for a return to power continues. Will Democrats turn to the past for leadership or forge a new path? Here at home, gang violence in River Oaks rattles the city. Will a teen's execution a mere stone's throw from mansions spark much-needed awareness and action? I'm Greg Grugan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, East Side conservative Warren Fawcett. Next up, progressive commentator and attorney Nyanza Moore. In the 3 spot, healthcare executive and former Republican congressional candidate David Balat. Batting cleanup, longtime super neighborhood leader Tomaro Bell. Next up, businessman and columnist Bill King. And closing us out on the hot corner, Chicano activist and educator Tony Diaz. Let's get to it. Climate change is real and almost certain to inflict devastating consequences here and across the globe. So concludes a comprehensive government-sanctioned report released by the Trump White House with the absolute minimum of fanfare on the busiest shopping day in America and buried within a holiday week focused on family, food, and football. Now, the congressionally mandated study by the U.S. Global Change Research Program warns of disastrous consequences which will permanently alter coastlines, worsen storms, intensify droughts, and trigger outbreaks of dangerous diseases, all because of greenhouse gases accumulating in the atmosphere.
We're not doing enough to fight climate change. We're looking at global temperatures rising. We're looking at drier conditions and more fires. You know, a world where the temperature rises 3 degrees Celsius may well be an uninsurable world.
President Trump, who has dismantled regulations and delivered strong support to the domestic coal industry, downplayed the report, claiming the projected impacts are based on extreme scenarios. That said, the report identified the Texas Gulf as particularly vulnerable, with a sea level rise twice the global average. I'm going to turn to Bill King. You've talked a lot about the global spine, the coastal spine. What's your reaction to this report?
I don't think there's anything particularly new here. I mean, this is all pretty well known. We've known that hurricanes in the Gulf have been getting a little worse over time. We have the additional problem here that in addition to the water going up, the land's sinking, and that's been going on for 20,000 years on the Gulf Coast. So we're looking at being under assault from the Gulf of Mexico, you know, for centuries, and we need to do something about it. Either that, or you got to just say we're going to abandon about 20 miles of coastline and all move back. There's no way to do that, no practical way to do that. And for, you know, a relatively affordable cost tag, we could build that, you know, and the coastal spine would pay for itself with one storm. So it's nuts not to go ahead and do this.
Nyanza, did you ever believe you'd hear it from the Trump administration that the climate change is real?
No, and I didn't hear from them this time either. They're not going to agree with that. Having the report come out on a day where it's the busiest shopping day of the year, or one of the busiest, you know, you have to think about it. At a time when we know that hurricane season is June 1st through November the 30th. The report indicated that by 2030, they expect for 1,600 people to lose their lives in flooding. If we know that to be true, and we think that climate change is something that's a myth, this is when science has proven otherwise. I think that it's time for the White House to stop harping on so much on the coal industry. And he said coal is clean coal, those are the option, and go to natural gas and energy saving alternatives. But this is a time where we cannot let the president's refusal to accept what science says as opposed to what's his opinion. We need to go ahead and consider options on what we can do about our coastal areas, as well as take a cue from the state of California when they're trying to cut down on their emissions and globally be the leader instead of the follower.
Tomorrow, often the most vulnerable are folks you advocate for in our neighborhoods. What's your reaction to this report?
Well, like Bill said, it is nothing new in there. And the problem is that we're not doing anything to prevent what we know is imminent, okay? global warming is not about to stop. They're not cutting back on emissions or anything. And one thing that they're not taking into account is the prehistoric polar is melting. If we lose that, you cannot stop the Earth's crust from heating up and the temperatures going higher. And all of that is a domino effect of additional hurricanes, additional blizzards. But we're doing nothing but lip service about it, nothing else. These are things that they know we could possibly help protect from what we know is coming, and they're doing nothing about it.
Warren Fawcett, any chance the president and his administration will consider slowing down some of the deregulation of the oil patch, as well as promotion of the coal industry? I mean, those are jobs that he's talking about.
I don't see it, because jobs is the biggest thing he has going for him right now. I kind of agree with his assessment that they use extreme scenarios. To me, it reminds me of the studies back in the 80s where they fed rats cases of Diet Pepsi for days on end, the equivalent of people drinking Diet Pepsi a case for 20 years, and it caused cancer. I think, you know, they took the ultimate worst case. So no, I don't think he's going to back off, particularly if you look at the timing of when he released this report. I think he's hoping that it will kind of just kind
So
of
do
go
you
unnoticed.
believe that climate change is real, or what?
I believe climate change is real, but I
Okay.
don't believe that humans necessarily do it. I haven't been convinced of that yet.
David Balat, jump in here. You deal with scientists all the time, at least in the medical arena. Do you think this is significant? You know, we've got wildfires in California. We've got, you know, massive hurricanes in the Gulf. What do you say about climate change? And do you think it's significant that the Trump administration recognized it?
I think you'd be a fool to say that climate change doesn't exist. It of course exists. It's just a matter of what we're going to do with it. Nobody talks about the solution.
Exactly.
We see so many, when you talk about this and you read, everybody doesn't read the report. I went and read the report, and many of us read the report. People don't do that typically. And if you didn't read the report, you're reading something about us going to die in the next coming decade, which just isn't going to be the case. Why don't we talk about solutions? And that's something that we don't have many people talking about.
Okay, Tony, look, we're talking about you know, the Western democracies slowing down on greenhouse gases. But what about India, China, Brazil, all of those folks who are trying to raise their standard of living, and sometimes that means a window unit and a 3-cylinder car. Right. I mean, what was your read when you heard the Trump administration recognize climate change?
Well, we shouldn't be surprised by Trump's rhetoric, because he put America first, right? So it's like we can pollute air for everything we have to do to make our dime and forget the rest of the world. On top of it, as a world leader, we're supposed to be the leader in democracy. It's disappointing to see President Trump undermine his own administration at several turns. Worse, when supposedly it's a report based on science. And I tell you what, if the Republicans don't care about the rest of the world, maybe they care about their own offices. 2020's coming. They're supposed to get young people. Young people care about this vehemently. They don't need this report. They will look up information on their own. And if they want millennials to vote for them ever, they have to actually address climate change more aggressively, especially with this new Congress coming in. On top of it, I don't think Republicans want to be branded as the party that opposes science, because that's really what's happening. So I think from top to bottom, we really need to recalibrate and rebrand. If Trump doesn't understand science, maybe he understands branding. So we need to actually change the way America is being perceived right now and act in accordance to save the world.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Still ahead, as thousands of migrants cluster across the Rio Grande, the president threatens a border shutdown. Plus, Nancy Pelosi's ongoing push for power. Will a new generation of Democrats buy in? Stay with us.